green hydrogen is not meant to replace every energy sources. It will be basically one part of a larger energy mix, so to say. Science is moving very fast, so this green hydrogen isn't a far-off idea anymore. It's happening, and the question at the moment is not how to make this green hydrogen, but it's mainly how to make it more affordable and scalable. And this is exactly what our research team is working on. Okay, my name is Shiva Mohajernia. I'm an assistant professor in the Chemical and Materials Engineering department here at the University of Alberta. I'm leading the Energy Materials Research Group, where we're developing novel materials for sustainable energy. To put it simply, we're figuring out how to compete with fossil fuels using green hydrogen. So basically, fossil fuels are actually a great source of energy. They are very cheap, they are convenient to use, and they have very high energy density. But the problem is that they emit carbon dioxide. But green hydrogen, on the other side, is very clean. When we use it, we produce water. But the challenge is that to make this green hydrogen more affordable and scalable. And this is what we are exactly doing in our research group. We try to develop materials that we can produce this green hydrogen at a scale, but at a much lower cost that we can produce at the moment.
We are working on different type of catalysts, namely the catalysts that are employed in the field of green hydrogen energy. So the catalysts that we are working on are categorized in three groups. First of all, electrocatalysts. The second one is photocatalysts. Last one is kind of photoelectrocatalyst material.
So basically, an electrolyzer is a device that can split water into oxygen and hydrogen by using electricity. And when this electricity is coming from renewables like solar and wind, then we call it green hydrogen.
Hello, my name is Anis. I'm a master's student in materials engineering. My current project is about fabricating nickel-based electrodes for water splitting application and hydrogen production. And this is actually an industrial electrolyzer that has two electrodes and that are separated by a membrane. And when we use electricity, we can split the water in one of the electrodes to oxygen gas and hydrogen ions. It's also, there is electrolyte inside this electrolyzer, and by using this electrolyte, the hydrogen ions can travel through the membrane to the other electrode. And after that, in the other electrode, these hydrogen ions can combine with the electrons from the power source. And after that, they can make like the hydrogen gas. And at the end, we can collect this hydrogen gas and use it as a source of clean energy. So our purpose is to fabricate and produce better electrodes for this purpose, to make this process more affordable and cheaper and efficient.
So scaling up from lab experiments to the larger scale systems in industry is very tough, and at the same time we need to design materials that can last for thousands of hours, not just few tests in the lab. So this will be, I would say, the most challenging things that we can work on. What is unique about our research is basically we developed some strategies to minimize the use of very expensive materials that we have currently in electrolyzers. We also design and fabricate some novel materials that can that green hydrogen productions will not rely on these expensive materials like platinum and iridiums, and we're basically working with much more earth abundant material, so that the green hydrogen that we produce with our systems, with these electrolyzers, will be much more affordable and sustainable. One strategy to minimize the use of these noble metals, basically by single atom catalysis. So we make these catalysts in an atomic scale so that we can increase the use of these noble metals. This is still a little bit challenging because the durability of this single atom system is not as good as what we have at the moment. But our other strategy is to substitute the noble metal with more earth abundant metal oxides like titanium dioxide, nickel dioxide, and with more earth abundant catalysts like iron and chromium. And so the efficiency at the moment is not as good as the platinum group metal, but is very close. So we're really getting there, I would say, near future.
Hello, my name is Ola Suleiman. I am a PhD student in Chemical Materials Engineering in the NRG Metis lab. My research focuses mainly on synthesizing and fabricating catalysts for water electrolysis applications. In electrolysis, which is basically the splitting of water to hydrogen and oxygen, we usually care about the purity and the quantity of hydrogen produced. So in order for us to do so, we need certain setups that enable us to quantify things according to industrial standards. And usually what that entails is that we need to use setups that enable us to analyze the purity and the quantity of hydrogen produced. This is where a gas chromatograph comes into play. So a gas chromatography setup is an analysis tool that enables us to analyze the quantity of hydrogen produced. And this happens by us injecting a sample into the GC system along with a carrier gas such as argon or helium. And then based on the size of the molecules in the gas mixture that we've injected, we can quantify how much hydrogen is produced. Usually this is important because in the industry, standards need really high purity of hydrogen. Specifically when we are talking about the use in fuel cells or in chemical processes or the manufacturing of certain chemicals or in energy storage. So what we usually do is that we use this setup to measure how much hydrogen we produce in our electrolyzers, and we also use it to see how pure our hydrogen is. This enables us to see whether it's efficient enough, whether our catalysts are efficient enough, whether this electrolyzer is efficient enough in its operation, and this enables us to comply with the industrial standards that allow hydrogen to be commercialized and used in wider energy-based applications.
So far, we've been able to make materials that decrease the amount of platinum group metals in the electrolyzers significantly. So we make them almost half of the platinums that we're currently using in the electrolyzers. We test the materials in the real system, so in the actual electrolyzers with a promising result. Of course, our end goal is to make this green hydrogen more affordable and scalable. And if successful, governments and industry can really rely on these results and can use it, and in the end it can have a great influence on the hydrogen economy. Changing the amount of platinum and iridium that we are using currently in the electrolyzers is quite high. For instance, the commercial one is 50% platinum in the carbon support material. So with our research, what we have tested so far is to decrease this amount of platinum to half. So we are using 25% platinum. And with these specific materials, we get exactly the same efficiency as the commercial PTC materials. Our ultimate goal is to use just the atomic scale of this platinum so that we have in the order of, I would say, 10 or 20 less platinum consumption.
My name is Parsa, and I'm working in Energy Materials Research at University of Alberta, Chemical and Materials Department. My project is a collaboration between National Research Council of Canada and University of Alberta. One part of my project is there and another part is here. When we are talking about green hydrogen, all the time it's two different processes. One part we have oxygen evolution and the another part is hydrogen. It's like we are breaking down the water molecule into two parts, hydrogen and oxygen. And all the time the problem is oxygen generation because it's much slower than hydrogen. So we are trying to improve this part to improve the whole efficiency of the process. So what I'm doing is generally growing a forest on the surface. So if you imagine in a forest, trees are producing oxygen all the time, and the amount of oxygen you have, it's normally dependent on the number of trees you have on the surface. So we are trying to improve and increase the number of trees on the surface. As a result of that, we have higher amounts of oxygen, higher amount of hydrogen, and better efficiency. And then finally, we can compete with other hydrogen generation methods.
I love that my work connects fundamental science to the real-world application. So we get to design materials in the atomic scales, and then later we see that how these materials can change the way that we convert energy at the moment. And at the same time, I really love working with students with different backgrounds and cultures, and also with different partners in my project.
The other thing I wanted to talk about is the equipment I used. The main part I use here is potentiostat. So one of the ways to measure the amount of trees we have on the surface we have for producing oxygen, it's potentiostat. We do some different tests to measure the surface area we have on the surface that produce oxygen. So this is the main thing I use here, and the other one is furnaces. We can use normal air atmosphere furnaces and also argon hydrogen furnaces, depending on the application we want to use the electrode. So sometimes we want to increase the oxygen concentration in our electrode. Some other times we want to decrease it as much as possible. So it depends on the application we wanted to use the electrode. So if you look at it from different angles, you can see different colors. So at some angle, you can see a yellow, greenish color. At another angle, it's brown. The reason behind it is that these are nanostructures on the surface, and when we have light inside these nanostructures, these trees, there is two different reflections from the inside the trees. So as a result of that, we can see two different colors here.
So the prototype that here we have in the lab is the 1 kilowatt electrolyzers, which is much bigger than a lab scale cell. So this allows us to test the materials that we are synthesizing, or basically the catalytic materials that we are producing. We can test it in a real world conditions. And they also gave us access to 25 kilowatt electrolyzers in their facility, so that we can also test the durability and the scalability of our materials in a much larger scale systems. So my industrial partner for this specific project is Cypher Neutron. They're a Canadian company making and developing anion exchange membrane electrolyzers. They provide prototypes for our research, so they gave us a prototype so that we can test our materials right in our lab, and they also gave us access to a much larger scale electrolyzers in their house, so that we can test our materials also in a much larger scale electrolyzers. They also trained our HQP on assembling and disassembling these electrolyzers, which I think would be very, very beneficial for the future of our students.